James.
Raf.
Now, this is the first episode ever with our new producer. So if anything sounds different, like, for example, I don't know, if my voice sounds like I'm kind of sick or nasally or something, that's Mark's fault.
Yeah, exactly.
That's Mark, our new producer's fault.
Exactly. So if at any point it sounds like Raf sounds a little bit under the weather or unwell or fluey, nasal, congested, that has entirely happened in Adobe Audition. That's not happening.
I feel
behind
fine.
the mic. Yeah, you feel totally fine. Certainly wasn't the case that I was with you on Sunday and you already sounded deathly ill.
And we had 100 beers.
And we had 100 beers. It had nothing to do with that. If it even happened, which it didn't.
Okay, this week, two things we're going to discuss. Well, more than two things. On the first episode, we're going to discuss, and don't be like, what the hell? I don't want to listen to this. We're going to discuss Yann LeCun, who we've mentioned before. He big AI guy. We've said before that, whatever, we'll get into it later, but whatever. He's leaving Meta. Big famous AI guy is reportedly, allegedly, leaving Meta. He thinks that LLMs are a dead end to AGI. And we're going to discuss why he thinks LLMs like ChatGPT are not going to get us to the promised land of AGI and they're a dead end, and what he thinks are going to get us to the promised land. So you can be across what world models are and that kind of thing. Then episode 2. What are we talking about in episode 2? Oh yeah, Google Gemini obviously dropped Gemini 3 today.
Yep.
Which is fantastic. And maybe ChatGPT's kind of chat app thing.
Yeah, there's a few things going on, as usual, in the world of AI and consumer AI. But I actually, yes, so to come back to what we're going to talk about in this first episode, because you're probably like, why are you saying a French guy's name to me? I don't want to hear a French man's name on my favorite tech podcast. It is actually an interesting moment because this sort of speaks to the current sort of crazy AI boom that we're currently going through. Actually, I should probably flag that by the time you listen to this episode, it's quite possible that NVIDIA's earnings would have landed. And that, as per usual, the entire world economy is on tenterhooks for every time NVIDIA reports earnings. Because NVIDIA is now some would say, risky proportion of the global equity market.
Indeed.
So, and it's pretty clear they're going to record a huge amount of revenue growth, but will it be enough? Will it be too much? You know, there are all sorts of different signals that people could take, which, you know, we're in the middle of this AI sort of bubble chat that we currently keep returning to. But I think this story about Yann LeCun, who is a machine learning pioneer, a French computer scientist, has been working at Meta for a number of years now. And what has been clear for at least a few years there is that he doesn't think that large language models, which have created this AI boom that we are currently in the middle of, this massive inflation of equity markets, the fact that all you hear about is ChatGPT all day is based on large language models and the transformer model. He reckons that is not enough. You know, at the end of the day, he has the belief that a lot of the flat-out AI skeptics have been saying for years, which is this is glorified autocomplete. It's cool. Like, he definitely thinks it's cool, but he's like, it's not the solution.
He does say, like, look, these things are useful, and we'll get into what some of his problems are in a minute. But I think up the top, like, the big thing is, I think we said literally like a few weeks ago that Zuckerberg must be saying, Yann, please stop going on podcasts. Do your little research stuff, but stop saying that, because we've just created a super intelligence division and basically put the future of Meta on the idea that these LLM things are going to
kind of a big deal. And the fact that you are running our AI division. Now, you know, he technically runs a division that's called FAIR, FAIR, which is Meta's AI research division, which is, technically the part of the company that is like thinking about big, exciting blue sky dreams for the future and are less focused on how can we make kids anorexic or sell products to people via Instagram ads, which is the rest of the business, of course.
Yeah, and he now though reports, as we discussed before, he reports to Alexander Wang.
Which
would have been, a little like the guy's won like a Turing Award, reporting to, as we've discussed many times before, the 28-year-old who basically ran a data labeling sweatshop.
So, I don't want to go into it. You can listen to our previous episodes or Google it. But, Meta did a kind of like jujitsu acqui-hire of Scale AI where they paid, I think was it $16 billion US?
For 49%.
For 49% of the business. Stole Alexander Wang, who's the founder, made him the new head of Meta's superintelligence. A lot of the real heads were kind of like, of course, Alexander Wang must be a reasonably smart guy. He started a business that was over $14 billion. That requires a bit of, at the very least, street smarts. But he's not a AI genius.
No,
so the fact he's running so again, for all of Meta's efforts to be run by him, while Yann LeCun, who this guy's been working on AI, he basically developed the original technology or a lot of the fundamental technologies that go into OCR, reading computers reading text and turning it into computer text, which was like relatively early area of machine learning and what you might
neural
call
nets and all kinds of things.
Yeah, so this guy's an actual pioneer, computer scientist, genius, and now he is technically, although Meta would argue that he's not subordinate, he's got his own little patch, but he's technically subordinate to a guy who ran a data labeling sweatshop.
And then like a bunch of the kind of the chitter chatter is basically like Zuckerberg. Well, as we said, it's not really in Meta's interest for them to have like they're basically the most famous AI guy saying the stuff that we're like pouring all this money into isn't going to really lead us anywhere. It's useful, it's fine, but for Meta's stock, for what Zuckerberg wants is like, okay, Meta are locked in, they're the future of AI, superintelligence will be on Meta platforms. Now he can't just fire him, right? That's never going to happen. Like you're never going to fire like Yann LeCun. So the chitter chatter is like he's basically put him in a position where he has to leave. He's not going to hang around there underneath Alexander Wang.
Completely sidelined working on, a no doubt well-capitalized research group, but one that is increasingly not important to the business. And I think, also the important thing to talk about here and sort of signal, which is that in the current AI race between the major companies, including in that, I'm going to say, OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, Meta, Microsoft. Let's throw Apple in there just because they are a player. XAI. I think you could probably say right now Meta is like coming dead last.
Yeah, it hasn't been a good year for them.
I mean, maybe Apple, but I think you put Apple ahead on the basis that they're making money from AI and not wasting so much on capex, which we talked about last week. Meta have put a fuckload of money into it, and right now they're sort of nowhere. We know that they've made a whole bunch of big money hires to hire researchers from companies like OpenAI and Google and Anthropic and all the rest of them. But the word on the street at the moment is that, which I thought was kind of interesting. I've been reading a few things. The vibe from like the AI scene is just they don't think Meta has, although they've got all this great talent there, they just don't have the organizational drive to make it work. Like people genuinely don't think they're going to be able to get it over the line. Because, I think Sam Altman kind of alluded to this at one point where he was like, what's his line? Something about missionaries and I can't remember the exact one. But it was something, but the general idea is that there's no clear sense of mission at Meta.
Crusaders or something?
Yeah, whatever. It was some annoying shit that Sam Altman said. Newsflash. But the general idea being that, Meta is an incredibly profitable business, and they're very good at serving ads and building products that scale, but they're just not. They don't have that like weird missionary zeal that some of these other companies have, like OpenAI and Anthropic and all that sort of stuff. Anyway,
like a culture of research or turning research into products.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Much, right?
Which
like, is like, yeah. What are you don't really think of them as doing that, right?
No. And even when they pumped all that money into the metaverse, it was also commercial and everything like that. Anyway.
Yeah. I'll quickly go through what the argument is, though, like why LLMs are an off-ramp, as LeCun puts them. They're a dead end when it comes to AGI. And when we say AGI, obviously we're talking about artificial general intelligence. That is like an AI that can do things better, look, as well as a human, basically, indistinguishable from a human. They can learn, it can like make itself better, all this kind of stuff that current ones don't.
Totally.
So,
yeah.
LeCun reckons that, firstly, the hallucination problem is insurmountable in that even if there's a very small chance that it can make an error, as soon as you start dealing in the kind of thousands and 10,000s of words or that much code, there's going to be errors in it. Even if there's only a 0.1% chance, you're still breaking it, and that error will compound because it's like next word thing. That's number one. He also reckons that words and language, and this is a big one of his, he says it all the time, is it's a low quality, as he rephrases, a low quality compression of reality. That is, he always uses the analogy like a 4-year-old observes more data via vision in a few years than an LLM reads in 170,000 years of text. That is, text is great and all, and LLMs have lots of text, but vision is way more information dense.
Yeah,
I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, I think you hear this a lot. I think it's not just Yann LeCun, but you hear it from a lot of these early reinforcement learning and machine learning and neural network guys. There's quite a few of them that are like quite skeptical about large language models, and a lot of it does come down to the fact that they're like a human baby, whether it's through their eyes or touch or smell or hearing, just ingests so much more data from the moment they're born than a computer ever could. And it's also limited by the fact that, when you ask ChatGPT for something, if you say, give me a recipe for chocolate cake or whatever, it does this sequential token processing, and like it gets locked into this one path that goes down, one token after the other, filling it in. Okay, the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog, and each token is going sequentially, whereas people don't think like that. You're taking input from all different sorts of stuff. If I'm drinking a bottle of fucking mineral water right now, if I lift that up with my hand, I can like absorb so much information about how heavy it is and what it looks like and the smell of it and all the rest of it, that just like you are not going to get from a large language model that's been trained on every single piece of text that's ever been created, or even every video, every image, whatever.
Yeah, exactly, because it has this like linear thing. So, for example, another example that he uses is that when you plan to go on a trip to Europe,
is my ears are perking up.
Well, he's like the LLM version of that though is make muscle in legs move to start first step and kind of continue along that path. Whereas obviously a human is like, okay, I need to book a cab to the airport, and now I plan to book that cab. Whereas an LLM, the metaphor is like it has to start walking out and then get into cab, whatever, on this like linear journey, doing everything one step at a time. So it's not actually kind of thinking or reasoning, even though we say it is, which kind of makes sense. And like intuitively, I think like I feel that like you feel that when it's using it. We've said it on the show like years ago. You're like, there's some intractable issues with this thing that I can't see it ever getting over. But to your point about like lifting up the bottle, this is what like Yann LeCun says the future is, these world models as they're called, which does just understand innately how physics works and how the world works. And again, with the bottle picking up example, in order for like, a transformer-based model like an LLM or whatever to break down that scene, it would have to take in literally every single thing in the scene, being like everything behind you, if there's wind, the movements of that, what's, in focus, what's out of focus if you're looking on a video or whatever, and then and produce every single pixel of that image just to predict what it's doing. If we're even talking about making an image here, right? It has to start from pixel 1 and go all the way through them for every single little detail. What he's proposing in these world models is that the model A can ignore the not relevant parts of the image and understand that they're not relevant but still exist. And B, have this kind of probabilistic outcome of what's most likely to happen when someone moves their hand with the bottle. And it's more this based on probabilities. Well, it's not even probabilities. It's actually kind of the opposite. Sorry, I'm doing my best to try and explain how I understand this, because let's be honest, this is all math that he's turning into English, and his French first, his English second language, although his English is probably better than mine. And I'm now trying to interpret him.
This is your excuse for not understanding, the sort of thing that would make you compensated millions and millions of dollars per year at an AI research lab, is because the guy's too French to explain it to you?
The French has nothing to do with it, right?
I've got a big brain, but this guy, he's French.
Anyway, let me quickly finish the thought for the real heads. So he actually thinks so LLMs do probabilities that, have to be a probability between 0 and 100%, or 0 and 1 actually, technically. It's somewhere in between those numbers. It has to sum to 100%, all these probabilities, the probability of you lifting your hand versus dropping the bottle versus whatever. Whereas he has this in his world models, these energy scores where everything just relates to each other. You're not looking at a probability. It's of the different things, how do they relate to each other, rather than aiming for this 100%, which apparently is very important. Anyway, that's basically the idea. A thing that innately understands physics without having to just try and predict what's going to happen.
Yeah, no, totally. And
that's a world model.
That's a world model. And this is what it's suggested that he's, this is what he's actually been working on at Meta. He calls it a
JEPA.
A JEPA. Joint Embedding Predictive Architecture is what he calls it. It's an alternative to an LLM, and it contains all that sort of stuff. High-dimensional, continuous model of the environment that isn't based on text. Because again, as you said, he's it's, LLMs are cool. They do cool stuff with text. Probably economically useful and important stuff. Not going to get us to a general model of intelligence. Now, the counterclaim, at least what the critics will push back and say, well, here's where you're wrong, is basically I think there's two ways to approach it. There's the Yann LeCun version, which is, we're going down the wrong path. We need to pull all the way back, and we need to do this thing where building a model that has a fundamental physics-oriented world model understanding, and then flower our AI development from that. Whereas the other side of it fundamentally says, no, maybe LLMs won't get us the whole way, but they will get us somewhere. It's kind of start with text, make it multimodal with videos, images, music, whatever, scale it, ship it, and just grind it out from there. And I think this is the way that OpenAI and Anthropic and stuff are saying, maybe you're right, Jan, at least in the idea that it's not going to get us there. But what we need will come out of this research, and we'll bolt it on through multimodal sort of different forms of media, and we'll get there in the end. Whereas he's nah, you're going down the wrong path. We need to pull back and start again.
Yeah, or go in a completely different direction. Well, I think that's the kind of the Demis Hassab is from the DeepMind guy who won a Nobel Prize. He's of that, in that vibe. He's LLMs are good, but they just need another thing bolted on, which is a search/planning thing, or something where you can ask an LLM to come up with a creative solution or whatever. Even if I think the example that he uses is ask it a maths problem and say what's 5 plus 5, and it answers 10. But before it tells you, there's another thing bolted on that's able to check the work, and if it's wrong, get it to regenerate and do some kind of thing. Bolt these other things on that are checking the work, making sure it runs. It doesn't have to just be math. It could be in any different thing. And so, you're still using the LLM, but you've got these other things bolted on.
And Yann LeCun would say to that, that's not how people think, so why are you even pursuing that?
Yeah.
Which, fair enough. But I think, and there's another way that, because the world model sort of idea, the idea of an AI that has a sense of its environment and is able to imbibe information and do stuff. Like Google is doing a ton of research on this. The one that they announced the other day that I think is kind of relevant, and I think this is another thing that people are kind of focusing on, is maybe this is the avenue, is like the fucking AI models that like play Minecraft and shit. Like there's a lot of people who think that like gaming or teaching a machine to like have goals within the context of like Minecraft or some other video game.
Yeah, this is the AlphaGo thing.
That the AlphaGo, like exactly, like AlphaGo.
David Silver.
Exactly, yeah, and like the same principles that undergirded like the chess playing machines and all the rest of it. The one, Deep Blue. It's the same thing. It's like, but if you attach it to like a sophisticated game like Minecraft, where you can do anything and you can set your own goals and move to achieve them or whatever, that's how you arrive at kind of like brute forcing into something that's smart.
Yeah, exactly. As long as you have rewards, like this kind of reward system, and it's trying to maximize, rewards, it will sort it out.
It will sort it out.
The rewards right.
And again, you come back to Yann, and he's like, that would not answer my core complaint, which is the fact that like you as a human being can start playing Minecraft and do very well playing Minecraft and come up with all sorts of different stuff, and then you turn Minecraft off and you go to your job and you do something else, and then you go on holiday. They're all different domains that every human being, unless they are like seriously mentally impaired, can do.
Yeah.
And this comes back to his idea that a 9-month-old baby is smarter than even the smartest LLM and will be forever.
Yeah, exactly. With learning, I mean, I feel like this is a crucial element to this. Is like the things don't learn. The way that they learn is you feed more data into the model, and then they do another training run and then relaunch it. Yeah, it doesn't matter what you or I say. Like it'll make the same mistake again and again and again.
Totally. And
which feels like a big issue.
It's a huge issue. And how are companies like OpenAI fixing this? By like stitching together some weird like memory, right? Which is not really memory. It's just that if I go to ChatGPT today and I write in, I'm thinking about, I don't know, baking some banana bread, and then 3 days later I say, what are some cool restaurants in New York? And it goes, you obviously like banana bread, so... I mean, that's not intelligence. That's more like an ad platform that they're building. But like,
No, but that's definitely that's what I mean by using the things. When you hit those moments, you're like, oh, there's a long way to go until these things are intelligent.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I mean. You can innately feel just by using them sometimes when those things happen, you're like, oh, I see what's going on here, and that's got to be tough to fix.
Yeah, absolutely. But I also kind of agree. So on like the intellectual level, I mean, I'm still skeptical about what the definition of AGI, artificial general intelligence.
I know. I was struggling to even voice it. Right?
Like, I mean, it becomes.
What is it? When do we get to announce it's AGI? Like who decides it?
I don't think. Yeah, exactly. If you had showed someone what, let's say, Gemini 3, which was released today, does now, and you showed it to them,
and a week ago, by the way, people on Twitter going like, Google have got AGI. They're about to release it. They're about to release AGI. You know that crowd are always
totally. And lo and behold, it's not. But at the same time, again, people talk about this all the time in AI, like the classic thing of the Turing test, which was a very old form of evaluating artificial intelligence, essentially, which is like, could the average person speak to one and not realize that it was a machine? We passed that a long time ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like with LLMs,
to the point where people have fallen in love with them,
People have fallen, exactly. But they so resemble a human intelligence, at least in form and function, that people are like leaving their spouses for them. So we blew past that, which was at one point thought to be a distant glimmer. I think we've kind of realized actually it's not that meaningful. It's not given enough data. It's not that hard to have a computer simulate a human being or simulate an intelligent organism.
Yeah. I mean, that is the flip side of all this with like, LLMs are busted or whatever, is when you read about how they work, it still blows my mind that they work at all. Like it is still insane to me how it can create meaning and then produce so many words that are so relevant to what you're saying. Like the technology is great, but yes, no, is it going to be whatever AGI is? That is like you can let it run off on its own and like trust it to run your life or, go off and make decisions and run businesses.
Yeah, totally.
That is a long way from that.
Yeah. No, exactly. And the current, and we've talked about this on the pod before, but like the whole thing that's powering the global economy right now, literally the stock market globally in the US and by extension Australia and whatever else, the thing that's keeping it pumping is this idea of like the scaling law. And this is something
but this is kind of like, sorry to interrupt, but like this is kind of like, well, speaking of the kind of the spectrum of takes. You have Yann LeCun on one side, which is like LLMs are dead end. And on the other side, I feel like Sam Altman, even if like there's researchers, I'm sure within OpenAI who don't think this way, but Sam Altman almost publicly is like, scale is all you need. And that's kind of like the spectrum. And then in the middle, you have other people who are like, oh, LLMs are good if we bolt other things on, blah, blah, blah. But it almost feels like Sam Altman publicly, because he kind of has to, is like, yes, scaling. More compute, more data, read every book until you're smart.
Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, as I said, the thing that's powering the economy right now is this idea that simply by throwing more compute, more chips, more power at the problem, using roughly the same principles. Like there have been advancements in how LLMs work since GPT-1, absolutely. But like the real driving thing has been they've put more chips and more compute at these algorithms, which have gotten better and there's better post-training work. The models are better. But at the end of the day, it comes down to how much data can you throw at it and how many chips can you throw at it. And this is the thing that Richard Sutton, who is he's a Canadian computer scientist. He's another guy who is very much on the Yann LeCun side in saying, this ain't it. This is not intelligence. We're going down the wrong path. Very cool.
Yeah, another old head.
Another old head. Another very old head. There's a great interview with him and the Dwarkesh, which a lot of people were talking about a couple of months ago because they were just sort of on completely different wavelengths and sort of talking past each other. But it's a great watch. But like he came up with this idea of what's called the bitter lesson, and he wrote like quite a famous essay about this, which basically said, in the long run, the bitter lesson is scale of compute, the amount of resources like hardware you throw at the problem is going to have better and more measurable outcomes than doing anything else.
Yeah.
You can figure out the fanciest mathematics for AI. At the end of the day, throwing more compute at the problem is going to have better outcomes. And that has become the undergirding principle of the industry that he now thinks is going in the complete wrong direction, which is a real like fucking Oppenheimer nuclear bomb moment for him, I'm sure.
Well, it's kind of the way you're seeing that like play out right now with the autonomous cars, which I think I'm almost ready to take the L on, is that, you have Waymo on one side, as we've discussed, with these very expensive kind of cars with LiDARs and whatnot. And it's like, how do the unit economics work, even though the cars do seem to work really well? And then on the other side, you've got the Teslas, which brute forcing it with like video cameras and AI that are, hopefully getting better over time. The bitter lesson here being classic, like the Tesla model, right? Which is throw heaps of data at it, throw heaps of AI at it with cheap video sensors, and that beats complex LiDAR, Waymo, radar, expensive, convoluted, deterministic systems. It's kind of like that playing out there, potentially.
Yeah.
But then you've got like Japanese companies that do use radar and only 20 grand a car, so maybe there's a middle ground.
Yeah, totally. Anyway, so it's kind of
middle path.
Yeah. So it's interesting. And I think like my general view, and this is where I've arrived, and I think I've articulated this on the podcast before. I'm inclined to agree. I agree with Yann LeCun on like probably a fundamental level. I'm like, if we're talking in academic terms about genuine artificial intelligence that is goal setting, able to like take and interpret and learn from inputs and data and from a wide variety of, multimodal information or whatever you want to call it, and act upon it and learn and have that stuff, we probably won't get there with LLMs. But I don't think that necessarily means that we're not going to, in the same way as you just described, it's fucking weird that ChatGPT works at all, that any of these LLMs do anything based on what is essentially and correctly described in many ways as like a glorified fancy autocomplete. is able to produce so many like unusual, powerful outcomes. I mean, just the example that you can take this quick brown fox jumped over to lazy dog autocomplete fucking program and then train it on a whole bunch of code bases, and then all of a sudden you have working software that can do stuff.
Yeah.
That may be a fancy parlor trick and nothing more than a fancy parlor trick, but I think that it's a fancy parlor trick that will have obvious global impacts, right?
Absolutely.
In the same way as what is a computer except a regular mail network that's really quick? You know, what is the internet essentially? Sorry, is what I meant.
Yeah.
Is it fundamentally that different from a fucking
a fax machine? Why is it not just a fax machine? You're just sending words, you know, from one side to another.
Yeah, is it any different from like the Mongolian Genghis Khan mail relay system that went across the Eurasian steppe? It's the same principle. You're moving words across large distances. You're just doing it a little bit quicker, and then hey presto, network society, gooning. It's this
kind of stuff.
I think just purely by scaling this new way of outputting information or whatever, you're gonna the world is gonna change significantly.
Exactly.
I
totally agree.
And I think that's completely agnostic of whether you think it's real intelligence or like you're building a digital god, which is I'm becoming less and less even interested in and talking about. I'm more interested in for me it's like you look at social media is absolutely polluted with slop right now, and that's like one of the negative outputs. That's not going away. That's going to get better. It's going to get more realistic. That's going to affect our world in a really, really dramatic way. And it's completely irrelevant whether it's real intelligence or whatever. So that's kind of where I've landed.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in exactly the same boat.
Yeah.
In that, like, regardless of whether, a transformer model or whatever can accurately predict or guess which way, my arm is going to move and the water inside the bottle shake around or not, and whether it has an actual understanding of the context of that, or it's just kind of going blah, 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 and outputting tokens that represent it as a simulacra, then it doesn't mean it's not going to have like massive economic impacts on the world, and it will, and they will still get better, as I said,
Yep.
Maybe with this model of combining it with other things, it will be able to increasingly complete certain tasks. I mean, also, I don't know, I was thinking about this because even in a few interviews I've been looking at with, some of the DeepMind guys, so, Altman is obviously like, AGI is here in 5 years, I think he said something like that. 3 to 5 years. It's just around the corner. I just need another trillion. But other guys who are like more on the researcher side, more trustworthy, are still like, 5 to 10 years, we're going to get AGI. And it's like, that's going to fundamentally change the entire world if we have that in less time than it's going to take for my daughter to graduate high school.
Yeah.
Like, is that going to happen?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah. And again, it comes back to the fundamental thing that, this will be the first technological revolution that has genuinely changed things overnight or like that quickly. Maybe. But it actually takes a long time for stuff to like move through the economy, move through human society, change things. These are very, very long. Even the Industrial Revolution took its damn time. And that was pretty quick. And has the internet dramatically changed our lives? Yes, I think it has. But also, has it changed that much if you take like a historical view? I don't know. I don't know. Put me down as a skeptic that we're going to see a fundamental reordering of the way that human life is over the next 5 to 10 years. But this comes back to the bubble chat. I don't want to get into relitigate bubble chat again. But fundamentally, even if there is, and I think there's a good argument that there's going to be a big old correction, I don't think it changes the general direction of where things are going with this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. World model or not, things are going to continue to move forward and change.
Yep.
The only thing that stays the same is change.
And what about love?
Never changes.
I don't think love goes away. It's the most powerful.
I couldn't think of the second half of that, to be honest. There's probably a few things that don't really change. Like the sun doesn't change that much. I know that like if you looked up close, it's changing, but it's not really.
It's not really changing. The sun's got a lot in it, I reckon. There's a bit like
I was thinking about this when I was thinking about my Egyptian neighbors, or they live across the road from me, and like how the Egyptians has obviously abandoned Ra.
Yeah,
and you know that was a cool religion. Why does no one do that anymore?
Oh, like Egyptian religion,
or like more sun stuff. Did science kill all the sun religions?
A bit of sun worship. Yeah, we don't really do. It can't, obviously, like some of it got sucked into Christianity. Like Christianity took some of the sun worship stuff and redirected it, but like straight up, I'm worshiping the sun. Or like, you know, again, we go back to the Mongols, the big blue sky. They got it like as if, I mean, if you were on the steppe, flat land, big blue sky, you'd be like, there's something is going on up there. I reckon that's where I came from, actually. But yeah, let's get a bit of a sun worship going. All right, we are moving to the second episode now. If you're not a subscriber to Down Round and you want to hear us talk about Google Gemini, and there's a couple of other little products that pop up around, like there's a few moves on the chat on OpenAI and ChatGPT. Head to downaround.net. You can subscribe. Extra episode per week. Hear us talk more.
Yeah, we answered the question, is Gemini 3.0 Pro AGI?
Yep.
You can only find out if you're a paying subscriber.
Yep. No one else is going to tell you. No one else is going to be honest.